This is the end of the show commentary for Best of the Left podcast, episode number 520, posted August 20th, 2011. For this commentary and the full show in context, please visit bestoftheleft.com. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks in advance to all the people who called in to leave the voicemails I'm just about to play. If you would like to leave a comment, question, or activist call to action yourself to be played on the show, the number to dial is 206-202-3410. So as promised, this is a part 2 commentary on kind of veganism and empathy and those sorts of topics. So I'm going to play a bunch of voicemails and comment as we go.
Hi, Jay. My name's Jose from Miami, and I would like to respectfully disagree with the gentleman who called in to the last show and claimed during his explanation of why he didn't like Citizen Radio that there was, of course, an ethical way of eating meat. Not only do I not think this is a logical assumption valid of building an argument upon, but I think it's wrong. I don't care that if the cows that you're raising are on a 100% ecologically friendly farm, and let's be honest, in most of the cases, this is not what it is. A lot of farms are not going to be 100% ecologically friendly. At the end of the day, you're still killing a sentient being that had feelings. I know some might say that animals aren't as aware as humans and that it's not the same thing, but the same thing goes for dogs, infants, the mentally handicapped, and I don't think you would kill one of these things, let alone eat its corpse. In my opinion, whether you're putting a cow, cows have the ability to cry, by the way, or a pig, pigs have the intelligence of a 2-year-old, out of its misery, or ending a long, happy life, it can't be considered ethical to kill it. Even if you wait for that animal to drop dead, you're wasting valuable food and water resources that are not only needed in starving nations, but by people in this country. Someone's going to go hungry tonight, and rather than give the grains and clean water that they need to them, you're giving it to livestock that you can breed for the purpose of solely for the purpose of eating its corpse, rather. Now, some might think that I'm trying to be inflammatory with the whole comparison to the babies and whatnot, but to me, the concept of eating meat itself is inflammatory. And the fact that people try and justify this as A-okay is worse. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be vegan or vegetarian. All I'm saying is that if you do so, at least have the humility of admitting it's not the best thing in the world. In any case, I look forward to your next podcast, and thank you for letting me share my opinion. Bye.
So first of all, just to explain real quick, as I'm playing these voicemails, I'm playing them not so much to have the argument between eating meat and not, but to kind of examine the arguments that are being made. So to just examine this argument, as he mentioned, very inflammatory, obviously. I think it did a good job of exemplifying one of my points, which is his incredibly high sense of empathy, as evidenced by him, making the comparison between animals and infant humans and the mentally handicapped and whatnot. I wasn't personally offended by that because I'm just not easily offended, but I know that people have really, really strong feelings regarding the ethical differences between humans and non-humans. And so I'm sure many people were offended by that. And basically my dissection of this argument is that when you start off by putting people on such a defensive footing, you're really probably not going to make much headway. At the end, he kind of turned it around by saying, look, like all I'm really asking is that you be a little bit more humble in your choices and not be so steadfastly assured that you are right, that eating meat is the right thing to do. And so if you keep doing it and you can admit that it's probably not the best, then that's okay. So I'd probably start with that argument and then work your way up to animals are like babies. Next.
Hi, this is Bobby Kaler from Mesa, Arizona. I listen to the Best of the Left. I just wanted to address this to Carl in New Jersey, who said it's never ethical to eat a sentient being. It is unethical to eat any living thing. And how do you know that plants aren't sentient? Just because we don't have any way to measure their beingness doesn't mean that they don't have feelings or can't think or aren't aware of themselves. That's kind of a ridiculous statement that saying eating anything sentient is unethical. It's judgment. It's a choice to eat. If you're a human being, that means you have to destroy molecules to exist. Whether they're plant molecules or meat molecules, they are still being destroyed. Or rather, we're extracting the energy from them to sustain ourselves as a human being. So stop judging others. Your point of view is one of a perceived superiority, when in fact it is ego-driven and unworthy of an intelligent being on the road to evolution. Everything has a life and a death. This universe will die someday. The only thing that will exist is energy, which may again, sometime, decide to become self-aware and then manifest into a reality that sentient beings might perceive with their antiquated, slow, cumbersome bodies and brains. Thanks. Bye.
Come on, dude. That is so sad. I mean, you're obviously an intelligent guy, and I have to believe that now with a bit of retrospect, you're embarrassed for those comments. I mean, you can make the moral judgment that animals are beings not worthy of any consideration whatsoever, and they're simply here to die for our pleasure, and that's fine. But to make such flippant, condescending remarks to basically condemn anyone who would believe otherwise and whose personal moral compass would say that sentient beings are worthy of some respect are just as silly as anyone who would make up complete non-science out of whole cloth to suggest that plants also have some sort of nervous system to make them sentient. It was simply the most condescending comment I've heard on this or any topic ever. It was pathetic, and you should be ashamed.
Hey, Jay, it's Chuck in Salt Lake City. I'd really hate to have like a back and forth or anything, and of course you can not play my call so we don't have a back and forth, but I had to respond. The reason I think there is an ethical way to eat meat is because we are carnivores. All you got to do is look at our dental pattern. We don't have teeth like a cow. We have teeth like an omnivore. We evolved that way. And for someone to say that all animals are sentient beings and we never should eat them is to say that our evolution is also just as ethically inappropriate, and therefore we never would have became Homo sapiens. I just kind of think like these people are kind of taking their brain out of gear when they try to say that we are a herbivore species. Anyway, keep up the great work. Thanks.
So much to unpack out of this one. First of all, I've never heard a vegan make the argument that we've evolved to be herbivores. So that's a straw man argument, not appreciated. Secondly, as a non-vegan, I'm going to go ahead and speak on their behalf anyways and say, you know who vegans never give shit to for eating meat? Our ancestors who lived millions or thousands or even hundreds of years ago, the vast majority of whom were always on the precipice of not surviving for lack of food. I have never heard a vegan make the claim that it is unethical for like tribal people to go out and catch an animal and kill it to feed their families, even up into the present day. So, tribal peoples now whose, their whole family, the most valued possession they have is the goat that they get, milk and cheese from and then will eventually kill and eat. I've never heard a vegan make the argument that that is an unethical way for that tribe to live. So Chuck in Salt Lake City, if you happen to live in a tribe and have to sustain yourself off of, goat's milk, then we can start to have that conversation. Now let's talk evolution, one of my favorite topics of all time. So first of all, yes, we clearly evolved to be omnivores. It is even one of the things that helped us to thrive as we have, because we were able to take nutrients from, a wide variety of sources. But we've evolved to do a lot of other things as well. For instance, we evolved to enjoy the taste of sugar because 1,000 years ago, sugar was pretty scarce. We needed it. It needed to taste good, and we were attracted to it because it gave us a burst of energy that we could use to run away from a lion or something. And now we use way too much of it, and we have an obesity problem. We've also evolved to be very susceptible to believe in religion. Religion creates a, shared belief system. It creates community, and humans on their own are really, really frail creatures that don't do a good job of kind of making it on their own. We've only thrived because of our communal nature, and religion has, for thousands of years, been the glue that held people together. And so those who were religious had a community to stick with and were able to thrive. Those who were not religious didn't necessarily have that community, and survival of the fittest, bada bing, here we go, a world full of religious people. Now, if all the religions in the world basically said, hey, like there's a God and he thinks that you should treat everyone really nicely, and everyone believed in that and it created peace in the world, well, that'd be pretty great. But once it starts to get out of control, religion becomes this reason to go to war, when it's usually the opposite of what the religions were preaching to begin with. So yes, we've evolved to do a lot of things that are beneficial in small doses that become catastrophic when they're allowed to get out of control. And that's basically where we're at with meat consumption. Next.
Hey, Jay. This is Patrick, the vegan MD from near Dallas. Just to comment on it, I think most vegans feel about meat eating the way most liberals feel about child sweatshop labor. We know it's a big problem. It's one that we have little direct impact on. All you can do is not participate and try to make people aware. But you don't argue for more humane child sweatshop labor. You don't try to care that the 8-year-old gets dental or $2 a week instead of $1 a week, or 12-hour days instead of 16-hour days. Child sweatshop labor is just immoral. And hey, guess what? I know it's been going on forever. In some societies, it's well accepted, just like meat eating. And these are the common arguments that most people use. So you really just can't make it appealing. And if he thinks that this person had come up with a novel idea that a vegan had not heard about ethical meat eating, he's wrong, because even casual vegans have heard them all. Anyway, just a couple of cents. Talk to you later. Bye.
So this is my favorite one of the bunch, and it's why I left it for the end, because first of all, he doesn't make a direct comparison between the lives of humans and other animals, which is something that can make people, really bristle. And so I think that was just a good tactic. And then secondly, personally, I'm just a big fan of analogies, and I liked his analogy and wanted to build on that to show how morality can actually change as circumstances change. So he did a great job with, you don't just try to make child sweatshop labor a little bit better, you try to end it. And so I want to make the comparison to go back to, think about child labor in general. That hasn't always been thought of as an immoral thing. Our society has developed to the point to think that children shouldn't be made to work. But if you just go back 100 years, and we live in a mostly agrarian society where kids grow up on the farm and are fully expected to help out from a very young age, that's 100% the norm in that situation. And so, to compare, I think the comparison is kind of obvious, but it goes back to the tribal family with a goat and eating that meat, and evolving over thousands of years eating meat, compared with factory farms of today being very analogous to child sweatshop labor. So it's could be moral to eat the goat that your family owns. It may be moral to make your kid work on the farm to help support the family. But when you move forward and society progresses, then all of a sudden it's not so moral to make your kids work because we've moved beyond that. And in the same light, you can at least understand why it is thought by many to not be moral to eat meat in the way that we do anymore, because society should have moved beyond it.